Every veteran influencer out there is trying to make you think that we just won. We didn't. We are still at war for veterans' rights. The VA rule that just came out, and that subsequently Secretary Collins folded on in 48 hours or less, guess what? It's still live. The VA just tried to punish vets for taking their meds. They didn't stop to think that maybe, just maybe, that would incentivize veterans to stop taking their meds just to get the benefits that they've already earned. They didn't think about the adverse consequences of that, what it's going to do to vets who currently rely on medication, vets who are going through the process trying to get the ratings they deserve and are taking medication. What if those medications are blood thinners, things that keep their blood pressure down, things that keep their PTSD at bay, things that help their relationship, their life? This video is a follow-on to the video I made just 2 days ago, which you can watch up here, or there'll be a link down in the bio with the video linked, where I talked about how this interim rule, based upon giving veterans disability ratings using medications instead of the disability itself, was one of the most insane things I'd heard in recent history. Now, judging by the veteran community's reaction at large to this, and I'm glad that this got the entire veteran community's attention, because the part that people don't realize is that this is just the cherry on top of a war that has been being fought for veterans' rights for over 2 years at this point. It is absolutely wild that the media doesn't talk about it. It's crazy that the VSOs and the mainstream organizations who have the biggest budgets to spend on this, they spend millions of dollars in lobbying, millions of dollars on executive salaries, but they can't stop the VA from posting an interim rule that would literally invalidate 99.9% of the disability benefits that veterans have earned. And meanwhile, the VA even goes further and says, hey, in their executive impact summary, this will save $23 billion over 10 years. Like the cost saving is the chief concern. Like they should get a pat on the back for stealing from disabled veterans, the very community that they have been entrusted to serve. I don't think that Secretary Collins wrote his tweet. Doug, I'd be happy to help you out, but you can't go gaslighting veterans. And if you took the VA Secretary's tweet as a omission of wrongdoing, or that they truly heard the veterans, or that they truly cared, I can tell you is that that tweet was bullshit. And there's many reasons why, and we're going to get into it here. And if you think that this fight is over just because the VA said, oh, we heard you, oh my God, people are upset, we're definitely, no, we're not going to do that, just stay tuned. Welcome to the fight. If you're new here, my name is Lukas Simianer. I'm the CEO and founder of VetClaims.ai. I'm a Purple Heart recipient from the war in Afghanistan, former paratrooper from the 82nd Airborne Division, and today I'm not only your favorite CEO, but I'm helping you understand how big the fight for your veteran rights is. Let's keep going. So the VA folded within 48 hours after the veteran community exploded. That was awesome. All of you who supported us, these other organizations who went out of their way, and the VSOs who did finally react to actually advocate for the people they're supposed to, the people they're congressionally chartered to, well, good for them too. Now, what this is in reference to is what was in the Federal Register as of February 17th. This interim rule, we'll put the link down in the bio below, is still open for public comment, and if you haven't left one yet, I highly encourage you to, and if you want to know how to leave a public comment or what you should be addressing in it, go watch our other video that I made previous to this, link below. Secretary Collins is gaslighting us in real time, and if it's not him, it's whoever wrote this tweet, because I can tell you it's bullshit. His reversal tweet claims that they were just clarifying a policy to protect benefits, but the rule he published says the exact opposite. We're going to read both side by side, and you tell me what you think in the comments below. So let's lay the groundwork of what's going on here. Why does this matter? Well, how are VA ratings supposed to work? Ratings are based on the average impairment in earning capacity in daily life, not how well you are masked by the pills you take on exam day. Let's say that one more time. Ratings are based upon average impairment in earning capacity and daily life, not how well you feel because of the medications you take affect you on C&P exam day. That's been the fight for over a decade. This is where it gets really wild. It is the implication that, okay, if you have a herniated disc in your back and you walk like pretty much bent over because you're in so much pain and you can't walk normal, can't go to the bathroom normal, can't have sex normal, things, can't pick up your kids or your dogs, the things that matter to you in life that make you who you are as a human. But you take a muscle relaxer so that you can go to work and sit at your desk or do your job for 6 hours. And you happen to do the C&P exam while you're on that muscle relaxer. Now, instead of getting a rating for the disability that you live with day in and day out, that you've had to build and augment your life around, instead of getting the rating for that impairment, you're going to be rated based upon how you looked during that 20-minute exam. It's traitorous. Honestly, it's treasonous. And maybe that's a leap, but why do I say such a thing as treasonous? Because if you think that the most warfaring country in the world would have the troops that it does without the vision that they at least try, even in a broken system, but the vision that they at least try to take care of the troops after service, they won't. Patriotism goes as far as believing in the nation and believing in the American dream. And we already know that that's thoroughly under attack. Now when you start to attack the way we take care of the vets after they serve, what's left? I don't think people are thinking about the second and third order effects that this war on veterans' rights is going to have over the next 10, 20 years. No amazing commercial, no amazing propaganda, no amazing thing is going to drive recruitment when they know that they see people left and right that got home from war and just killed themselves, got home from war and are homeless, got home from war and they don't have medical care, got home from war and they can't get seen or helped or trusted advice even from an administration, an organization, the VA, that literally was founded to help them. I want to give you a quote from George Washington. And this is incredibly impactful because if I look to my left right here, I look directly at the Washington Monument. A monument of a man who had the utmost power and then stepped away saying, you know what, for the Constitution to matter, to prove that we can be a democracy, to prove that we can be different than everyone else and not live under tyranny, I will step down and let the people choose the election. No other general who had led an army to literally conquer a country essentially would step down, nor did they in history. That's why it's special. Washington was a great leader, and this quote right here ties it in even further to this point. Washington stated, "The willingness with which our young people are likely to serve in any war, no matter how justified, shall be directly proportional as to how they perceive the veterans of earlier wars were treated and appreciated by their nation." I don't know, Secretary Collins, do you think that this rule lives up to that? I don't. I don't think it does at all. I think it's a travesty. I think it's a disappointment. And I think if General Washington were here today, he would just say how insane it is. Probably some other choice words, but they might sound funny because he had wooden teeth. How many people know that? Well, we have to understand why the VA got mad enough to make this rule in the first place. It seems like it came out of nowhere, right? But that's not actually the case. Like I said, this war has been brewing for years, but it's hitting a culmination point. There's what we call the Jones line of cases. Ingram v. Collins was the most recent one. This happened March 12, 2025. It forced the VA to rate the underlying untreated severity for conditions like PTSD, migraines, chronic pain, and musculoskeletal injuries. The VA called it erroneous because it meant higher ratings and more work. Thousands of vets got fair, often higher ratings, and examiners had to consider, what if there was no medications on board? What would their daily life be like? What is this disability like on this veteran's worst day? That's where that whole phrase came from. Explain what your worst day is like with this. Now, the VA admitted in writing that this would affect over 500 separate diagnostic codes. Mind you, there's thousands and thousands of diagnostic codes, but over 500 of them would be directly impacted by this ruling, which the VA called erroneous. I think it's pretty interesting that there's a notion that a federal agency can look at what a federal court, the people who have judges on them that have actually studied the law at great length and then done so well that they get appointed into these seats. Out of a whole nation of lawyers, these are the federal judges, the cream of the crop. And you as an agency just get to say, well, that's kind of inconvenient. I think it's erroneous. Yeah, man, you know what? There's a lot of laws I would like to just say, well, that's erroneous. Why can't I own a surface-to-air missile? I'm kidding. I don't want one. I have no need for one. But why can't I own a 240 Bravo, right? Just outright. Why do I have to go through these erroneous laws? I think the federal court cases are erroneous. Where does that line of thinking go or take us if you just get to make it up? Let's continue. What did this rule that the VA proposed that set everybody on fire actually say? Well, we can let their own published records bury them and bury the silly narrative that it was just there to protect benefits. The exact two sentences they snuck in, right, were supposed to be effective February 17th, 2026. And they amended 38 CFR subsection 4.10 to say if medication or treatment lowers the level of disability, the rating will be based on that lowered disability level. The second sentence, VA will not estimate or discount the ameliorative effects of medication. So the VA is not going to consider what your disability is like without medication. So if you've got PTSD, night terrors, struggle through daily life, which we all know a few vets who do. Some of us have lived through it, been through it ourselves. I have. So to say that when that veteran is taking medications, sleep meds to sleep through the night so they can actually rest and have somewhat of a semi-productive day the next day, meds during the day to reduce anxiety, lower blood pressure, make them less reactive. When that happens, the VA now says, well, because the symptoms aren't manifesting because you're on these meds, you don't really have a disability. You don't need to get rated. I'm going to give you a 0%. In what fucking world? First of all, there's so many things wrong with this. It discourages veterans from taking medications that they could be needing, that could be saving their lives, that could be helping them get better, that could be helping them get to a place in their life where they can go to therapy, where they can go to a rehab, where they can do whatever. Whether it's mental or physical, either which way, it's discouraging vets from doing that because now they're saying, well, I'm not going to get the benefits I deserve. Let's go back a step. Why do veterans need the benefits that they deserve? Stability. I'll say it again. When officers get out of the military, they are worried about where they're going to get their MBA. When enlisted veterans get out of the military, they're worried about not being homeless. Too many people, including Secretary Collins, that make these decisions are officers. They do not understand what the enlisted life is like. They do not understand what the enlisted transition is like. And it's bewildering, and it leads to shit like this. Oh, well, they don't need to put that disability money into their 401k or into their savings or into investments because that's what they think you're doing. They don't realize that for veterans, especially in the first 5 or so years getting out, most of them rely completely. They would not have the same quality of life without that disability rating. They would not have the time, stability, or ability to go to college, to use the GI Bill, to use the other benefits that they've earned. This system exists for a reason. So the translation for real life, PTSD on SSRIs that let you leave the house, well, instead of a 70% rating, you're now getting a 30 or a 0. Boil it down in the simplest way possible. The VA wants to say that the federal court's findings and rulings are erroneous. I would like to tell you, Secretary Collins, and whoever on your team made and wrote this rule, that their existence is erroneous because they clearly do not understand what the enlisted veteran journey is like. They do not understand how critical getting access to these benefits is for transition. They do not understand the complete lack of support that exists for them. Oh, there's nonprofits you can go to. Well, Secretary Collins, I have to tell you that if the free options that worked, if the organizations that have existed for decades worked, if the county officers were sufficient, if the systems that were here were good enough, my company wouldn't exist. I wouldn't be sitting here making this video. We wouldn't have 22 suicides a day. The Audie Murphy VA in San Antonio, Texas, would not have had 2 veterans kill themselves in the parking lot in the last year alone. If you were saying, hey, what we've got is good, then you're telling me that you agree, hey, you know what, 22 a day is that's just where it's at. That's what's going to happen. Hey, those two suicides in the parking lot at Audie Murphy, that's what's going to happen. That's not to count the Marine that we had to spend our own dollars to medevac, take him to California and get private surgery because the VA performed malpractice on him and then refused to fix it. And between refusing to fix it and us medevacing him, they also lied to him about it. And then they refused to give him his x-rays. These are just a few stories out of the thousands. The current system does not work. Adding this to it, taking more away from vets so that you can save money and not have to retrain your people, it's disheartening. And what it has told me is that this is a concentrated effort against veterans. What happened in California, what's happening across the nation, the VSOs and the DAV being more concerned with people like me who are actually adding value, investing in technology and trying to improve the system, they're more worried about me than they are rules like this. That's the fucking problem. Now, before going back into a tangent, we have to address what the deficiencies are and what the perverse incentives are. The VA did more than just make a bad rule here. The VA showed you how they feel about you. When I keep saying this means war, they showed you that they're not relenting. It just means they're going to do it quieter next time. So, punishing the responsible veterans, that's what this does. Take your meds like the doctor says and function better? Well, the VA is not going to give you the rating you deserve. Now, skip your meds before the C&P exam to ensure that you look worse? Well, higher rating. That's the literal incentive structure that the VA just put into place. This ignores the reality of chronic conditions. If you're not mad already, just leave. But if you're infuriated and you want to understand how this keeps affecting veterans, the idiocy in their logic and what they've said, keep going, because we're not done. Most service-connected disabilities are managed, not cured. You don't just get rid of PTSD. My knees, I don't even know how you manage them. They just hurt. My back, yeah, I can manage that, sure. But it doesn't go away. There are very few things that are injuries from service that are rateable that go away. Well, why? Because we look at what it takes to get a rating. You have to have a connection to service, right? A nexus. You have to have a current diagnosis, and you have to have symptoms that manifest at a level that renders them worthy of a rating on the VA schedule of ratings. Well, if you have a current disability, then that means that it's not cured, it's managed. TBI, it doesn't go away. It doesn't stop affecting you. Your brain doesn't just regrow magically and everything gets better after 5 years because you haven't gotten blown up since. It is completely ignorant of the reality. And I'll go back to it. The VA wants to say that this federal court ruling is erroneous. No, this rule is erroneous. The person who wrote it is erroneous. The person who wrote Secretary Collins' tweet is erroneous. It's bullshit. Let's talk about motives. What if I told you that the VA's entire motive on this was ease and money? And perhaps it was just money. Secretary Collins, in his tweet, I want to pull this up in particular, said, the VA is halting enforcement of the interim final rule. The VA issued the rule, this right here, VA issued the rule to clarify existing policy and protect veterans' benefits in the wake of ongoing court action. Well, there was a decision. There wasn't an ongoing court action. There was not just one decision, but multiple. But when the VA submitted this rule, they had to put something into the Federal Register, right? The VA said that this rule was needed immediately, and I direct quote, to minimize the negative impact of Ingram v. Collins, because it would require the re-adjudicating of over 350,000 currently pending claims and overburden the VA claims adjudicatory capacity. That means that over 350,000 veterans do not have the rating they deserve, at minimum, just because of this one context. Forget the bad and inconsistent CMP exams, forget the inconsistency of the raters, forget the demand for some magical proof of nexus when half the veterans didn't get to take pictures, didn't get to go to sick call, didn't have ways to form proof of the injuries that were occurring to them in service. Just from this alone, 350,000 of you out there, 350,000 brothers and sisters who sacrificed, who signed up to serve this country, don't have the rating they deserve, aren't getting the benefits they deserve. And instead of fixing it, the VA said, well, man, this court ruling, the federal court's decision on what we should do, what is the right thing legally and morally and ethically, well, we don't like that. It's going to make us do over 350,000 claims again. So let's change the rule. Isn't it beautiful? Collins goes on to say that they're just trying to protect veterans' benefits. They were protecting the VA budget and workload, not you. They were protecting the political viewpoint, not you. Secretary Collins has achieved great things in getting ADC, average days to complete, significantly down. Well, Secretary Collins, I got to tell you, VetClaims.ai has the technology to take you and the VA to ADC 0, minus the ones that have to go to CMP exams. But we got something for that too, and we're actively working it. I hope you watch this, and I hope you see it, and I hope you understand that any shade thrown your way is purely because all I have to go off of is the tweets and the rule that your organization published. And it doesn't make me happy. It terrifies me because I know that the VSOs aren't going to do it. Veterans deserve the benefits that were guaranteed to them on the day that they signed that contract. It's that simple. You don't get to take it away from them because it's inconvenient. You don't get to take it away from them because it's going to mess up the claims processing flow in the ADC record that you currently have. You don't get to take it away from them to flex about saving $23 billion over 10 years. You don't get to take it away from them, period. Because if you do, the consequences are much bigger, much, much bigger than just angry veterans. The consequences are what happens to this veteran community, who, whether anybody wants to recognize it or not, is the backbone of America. The hard workers, the entrepreneurs, the disproportionate entrepreneurs, the job creators, the small business owners. Since World War II, it has been proven, I mean, go back, every war in America, the veterans have been the ones who help rebuild. The veterans have been the ones who, in a down economy, take chances, take risks, and build things. The veterans have been the ones who take the lead. You do not get to take away from them for your own convenience. There's another piece of this that everybody seems to be ignoring. The DAV, the VFW, the VSOs, everybody on social media seems to be ignoring this. Why the sneaky rollout? Why all of a sudden overnight, oh, hey, there's this rule, here it comes. Man, I'm surprised they didn't publish it at midnight, or maybe they did. And just federal government bureaucracy meant that no one actually hit publish till 9 a.m. Calling this an interim final rule with no warning and effective immediately means that they skipped the process of going to comments, right? They published it and made it effective on the same day, February 17th. There was no advance comment period, which is uncommon. They used the good cause excuse because they knew it would blow up. Typically, whenever a rule like this is posted, there's a comment period. The ATF is one of the ones who's most known for this. Hey, we think we're going to do this. It's open for public comment. And if there's enough backlash, typically it'll move the needle on it. They did their best to get this through without anybody noticing. Now, finally, I want to address Secretary Collins' tweet. Secretary Collins says, to clarify existing policy and protect veterans' benefits. That's the first sentence of his tweet. The rule itself admits that it was made to undo a court ruling that protected veterans' benefits. If you compare Collins' tweet to the Federal Register motive paragraph, they don't align. In fact, they completely just contradict each other. Collins goes on to say, many interpreted the rule as something that could result in adverse consequences. Many being every major VSO, veteran influencer, and veteran who had the ability to read above a third grade level. Every single one of them issued statements within hours calling it harmful. Collins goes on to say, the VA does not agree with the way this rule has been characterized, but we're killing it anyways. I read that in such a weird backhanded way of I don't agree with you, but because you guys were, complaining enough, we're not going to do it. Not acknowledging the damage this would have caused. In fact, just denying it. If you didn't agree, why did you fold in 48 hours, right? A tweet saying we won't enforce it ever is not a formal rescission either. This rule is still sitting in the Federal Register and is active. Fuck that. And every veteran influencer who's out there saying, oh, well, Collins repealed it. Look, I talked to Collins. I did this. Oh, it's good. It's fine. They heard us, veterans. We won. No, you didn't win. It is in the Federal Register and it's active. They just made a tweet that says, I'm not going to enforce it. This tweet doesn't have a legal forcing mechanism. And every veteran influencer out there wants you to think that we've won. And I'm telling you that the fight has just started. It's why I'm here in DC, going to Capitol Hill every week for your rights as a veteran. This is not over until Secretary Collins has a rescission announced for this rule, until they pull it back and cancel it. They cut it. If you want to understand how this is going to affect you, because at this point, until they rescind it, repeal it, or have a rescission, it's going to come into play. You're just not going to know when. Do not mistake a tweet for thinking that they back down. Continuing on with Secretary Collins' tweet, bragging about backlog reduction at the end of this is absolutely wild. They quote them and they say, we cut the backlog 60%. Cool, but that's completely unrelated to what you're doing. You don't get to just say we cut the backlog by changing the rule and not giving veterans the benefits that they've earned. It just continues to be mind-boggling. You need to understand that this whole celebratory party that the VSOs are having is smoke and mirrors. They want it to be the first big win that they've had in decades while they hemorrhage membership. They want to leverage it to make you think that they're the ones who defended you, when in reality, all they did was force Secretary Collins to write a tweet telling you he's not going to enforce it, hoping that everybody is ignorant enough to think that they're never going to. Well, if you're never going to enforce it, why is it still a rule? Why didn't you repeal it? Boggles my mind. Ultimately, it's your move. If you watch this video to this point, what I need you to understand is that it is your duty to not only share this video with every other veteran out there who thinks that they just had some big victory, but to go into the comments on the public register for the rule and tell them this isn't over until you repeal it. You can enforce this anytime you want with no announcement, and it's not fair. Write it how you want, but cover those points. It's not over until you repeal it, because it's not. Writing a tweet saying, I promise I'll not enforce it, while still leaving it as a federal rule, it doesn't work. It's not a victory. It's just one more backhanded stab at veterans' rights. They're assuming that you don't know better. But because you follow me here at VetClaims.ai, you do. And we need more veterans to join us in the fight.